Hey party people, I'm Captain Zeus and welcome back to BP Fun. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a review over episode 4 of the DC HBO series, The Penguin. Now, spoiler warning for those of you that have not seen the episode, because I will be going into some details about it. And if you guys like these reviews, please like, comment, subscribe, let us know in the comments below your thoughts on this episode. Let's go ahead and get the show on the road. Now, this episode was really good. It was a lot more of a backstory episode for Sophia, much like how the previous episode was more of a backstory episode for Vic. You know, we're kind of seeing the events that led up to them hitting the main story and how they got to this point. Now, obviously, things pick up after episode 3 left off, where the Maronis have Sophia and Oz captured. In the midst of that, they reveal that Oz killed her brother. And so, as Vic comes in to save Oz and they run away, Sophia calls the therapist to come and pick her up, and that's when we hit the flashback. Now, the flashback had a very interesting start to this, because Sophia was a good kid. She was a really good girl, a really good daughter. She was like the perfect family member, if you will, wasn't getting into trouble, even though she knew what the family was about. You know, she was the next in line for Carmine to take over the Falcone family, which, to be fair, like they mentioned, is unprecedented because traditionally it's always the firstborn male, just like any royalty in the history of humanity. And so he was going to break that tradition with her. Although, I kind of felt like that wasn't really the case, but nevertheless. She is still haunted by the death of her mother, which was told to her as a suicide. But as these other women at the club her dad works at start to die in similar fashions because of the reporter telling her, it seems to be there might be a trend here and maybe it wasn't a suicide. And so obviously she confronts her dad about it, and that's where things take a turn, because he basically called her a liar. He said, "You're crazy, you need help," and he essentially at that point got her locked up. Now, Oz was her driver at this point. I do want to touch on the fact that Oz and Sophia seem to have more of a closer relationship than a driver and their client, or the driver and the drivee, if you will. It seemed like they were really close. I still think there might have been some romantic interest between the two of them, considering how they looked at each other and how Sophia talked with him. I feel like there might have been some romantic interest there. Now, granted, I don't think it was anything that was too crazy, considering she, just like everyone else in the Falcone family, basically dogged on him in this episode. Granted, she was going through a moment, but still, she dogged on him nonetheless. He's getting disrespected in this episode, and you can see the seeds being planted of Oz just constantly getting disrespected, constantly getting put down by this family that's supposed to take care of their own. But since he's an outsider, they don't really care, and he wants something of himself. But obviously, that's not what this episode is about. This episode is about Sophia. Flash forward after she tells her pop about the death of these girls, she gets arrested for killing them, which I was like, holy crap. Did Oz snitch? I don't think Oz snitched on Sophia for that. I know he told Carmine about her meeting a reporter, but I genuinely just, based on the way he reacted, I don't think he was a part of or even knew Sophia was going to get arrested or blamed for all of this. And I think that'll be brought up later on. Sophia is freaking being framed for moitering like a whole bunch of women, including the reporter that she talked to early in the episode. And that's when we get to Arkham. And we saw a little bit of it at the end of the Batman movie. This is nothing but a loony bin. Everyone in this freaking place is crazy and out of their mind. The freaking security guards and the doctors are all freaking corrupt. It's typical Gotham behavior here, except for one. I wouldn't say that he's completely corrupt, but it's her therapist. Her therapist worked at Arkham, which is a very interesting connection. Nevertheless, we do get introduced to a Batman villain, Magpie, who's very minor in the comics. She was actually first introduced in like Man of Steel 36 or something. Not really shown a lot in this DC universe. And so when we get introduced to her in here, I'm like, okay, she's gonna make a friend. You know, they're gonna go and break out of prison, or they're gonna be cool buds, and she's gonna want to avenge her. Nah, she freaking suspects her of snitching and reporting everything to the doctors, and freaking bashes her head in at lunch, which is nuts. And then afterwards, she begins to look directly at the doctor and say, "I'm innocent." Bro, you just bashed someone's head in. I think we're gonna have to reconsider that. I thought that what would happen is she would eventually give in to the moniker the Hangman, and would eventually give in to the therapy quote unquote, the electric therapy, and she would start to kill some of the inmates in there in the manner that she was framed to be believed of killing these other women. It's kind of a bummer that we didn't get to see that, but I think it's an interesting aspect that we see her be innocent. Like, the only time she hurt somebody was Magpie. I think that brings up a topic of DC making characters, or making villains, I should say, making villains in the way that the MCU does. And it concerns me. Now, Penguin is a complex character. We don't really get to see much of his backstory in live television, on movies, or even in animated stuff either. Like, we don't really get to see a lot of who he is as a person. Now, I do like the complexity that we get with Oz. He's not a good guy by any means. And it's not like he has a good moral compass per se. Like, sure, he'll help out like Vic because he sees something in him. It's like a mirror almost. And that's like something a lot of people can relate to, good or bad. But with Sophia, she's completely innocent up until the point of this episode where she starts killing people. I think that's like the MCU mold of a villain being a misunderstood hero, or not exactly a bad person. And I'm worried that DC might go down that trend, because obviously the Batman Part 2 is going to be coming out, or it's going to start filming next year. It's highly speculated that Mr. Freeze is going to be the villain, and I'm pretty sure it is going to be him. And he's a character who isn't evil to be evil. Like, he's chaotic neutral, if anything. Like, he'll do whatever it takes to save his wife. And that's understandable. That's a core component of his character. But what I'm worried about with the show is that they're going to go the MCU route and start making villains just misunderstood. They kind of did that with the Riddler, but again, that's kind of his character. But I don't want to see that happen a lot. Granted, the Matt Reeves Batman universe is pretty dark and gritty. It's grounded. It's been said a bunch of times. So I just hope that we don't go that route with the villains. We flash forward to Sophia waking up, to the therapist checking on her, and she basically like has her epiphany. She's like, okay, I understand what's happening. I understand who I is, and I'm not keeping any of this bullcrap in my pocket. I don't know what that means. Just go with it. Anyways, she basically knew that the therapist liked her. To be fair, if I was the therapist, or if I was in that universe, I'd like her too. Yeah, he was obviously into her since the get, which is probably one of, if not the main reason why he wanted to help her. And that seems to be the case with a lot of doctor-patient relations where it goes above and beyond. It's typically because there's romantic feelings there. And I thought she was gonna give into it. I thought she might have liked him because she was getting all close up to his face. Like, literally they were about to be locking lips, and I'm like, dang girl, you just don't care. And then she yeets and just dips right there, straight up blue balling this guy. And I feel so bad. I'm like, dude, if a chick did that to me, I would literally just want to, I'd be so pissed. But to be fair, he was apparently taking meds to like suppress, I don't know what, like she said to numb himself, but we don't know what the meds he was taking was. We don't know what their effects are. And there was like 3 different bottles. So I'm interested as to where that avenue leads. I'm also interested to see if he's an existing character in the comics as well, to see if this is like his origin, if you will. Nevertheless, Sophia walks in on Luca and the other Falcone members just having dinner. And dog, Sophia was looking like a freaking full course meal. I couldn't keep my eyes off her. That dress was fantastic. And I'm not saying that because it was yellow. Like, dude, she was looking so good. I don't know how any of those guys were able to keep eye contact with her. Being honest. But anyways, I digress. She basically went, like, this was her unhinged moment. This was her turning point, her nexus moment of, I'm done being Sophia, I'm gonna be the Hangman. Which is interesting how it took the Oz betrayal and her reflection of the past and just everything building up, obviously. It took this moment to do it instead of getting out of prison immediately. I would have switched while I was in prison. I would have been like, yo, now I'm gonna be what you say I am, even though I'm not. That would, day one, I would have been that. Now, she does kill everyone except for 2 people. She saves her niece. I believe it's her niece. And I thought that was nice. You know, obviously you don't want to kill any innocents in this situation. And she took her out to the greenhouse and, you know, they had a little sleepover there, which at first I was thinking, I'm like, yo, what the frick? Why are y'all having a sleepover in the greenhouse? What's this all about? And then she goes inside, and I guess she was just releasing the carbon monoxide or something in the house because everybody was dead. Silent deaths. They were all suffocated. That's why she had her gas mask on. And there's only one person who survived, Johnny Vito, which I was like, the window that was open in his room was the window she was in earlier smoking a cigarette. So I'm like, why was he in his room? How did he not know the window was open unless she already knocked him out and was there in the middle of the night. I don't know. A lot of questions there in that specific moment. But nevertheless, she had the gun, and I'm like, yo, she's gonna kill this dude. She really doesn't like Johnny. But I think what's obviously gonna happen is next episode, she's gonna use him to get her officiated as the head of the Falcon family. And this is where the three-way civil war is gonna happen, or the three-way war, where it's gonna be the Maronis against the Falcons, and Oz is the one that's pulling both scales, and he's gonna, I don't know how, he's gonna come out on top on this. I don't know how. I'm so interested as to where this is gonna go. This episode was such a turning point for the story, and personally, I think episode 3 was better than this episode. I'm just more intrigued as to what's gonna happen next. I'd probably rate this episode solid like 7 out of 10, to be honest. It wasn't anything too crazy. It was just really interesting, a little bit more lore expansion. But again, hey, what do you guys think? Please let me know in the comments below your thoughts on this episode, and if you think Sophia and Oz are meant to be together. I'm Captain Zeus, and I'll catch you guys later. See ya.